I'm going to shorten this a whole lot because we've been doing Q&As, but we wanted to take the opportunity, because we had people here, to give you an opportunity to ask questions, and maybe even some of you that have been to other ones, you may want to ask different questions, and that's okay too. So this is going to be really a shortened thing, and one of the big things that you will miss from this one or from this one that were in past ones is Tom Anderson gave, I thought, just a wonderful presentation about how we got to where we are as a community. And it takes a little time to do that, so I'm not going to do that, but we'll get some of the high points. So the idea here is to hit us through the high points. Okay, so what we're calling this is a path to thoughtful growth. Some of you probably realized, you've been here a lot longer than I have, and I don't even know, Nico, for instance, what the population was here like when you showed up here. Yeah, but I do know over about the last 6 years, we've grown from a community about like 4,500 residents and members to really and I used to say 9,500. I found out that I was really wrong. It's now 10,000. So that's in 6 years, almost double the growth. And with that, there's opportunities that we need to really start looking at. So here we go. Everyone knows that we have been recognized in publications and even with surveys and that type of thing of one of the best lifestyle communities here in the United States. And that continues to draw people here because they understand not only that we have a nice natural community, but we have some finest amenities that you can find for the price points that we have. But we know that this is going to continue to have to grow, and we really want to make that a managed or a planned growth thing. All right, the CNRs. They're riveting reading. But if you read them, and especially in the sections that we have that we're breaking or trying to propose amendments to, it has always been the CNR's intent to have the declarant, who's Tom Anderson, and the community club work together on growth. You really can't do one without the other. Tom does control where roads and water go. We control where sewer goes. So he can't really do much unless we're following him with sewer, and we can't do much if there's not roads and water, okay? Matter of fact, our sewer doesn't work very well without water. So this has truly been a partnership, and I will tell you this much, if you read the CNRs, they've been around since 1997. Every time I get in them, seems to be a lot more often than I care to, I really have a lot of respect for the people that wrote those things because they've served us pretty well for 20, almost 30 years now. And they put a lot of forethought and actually did a lot of planning for things I probably would have never thought about at that time. So we owe them really a debt of gratitude. Okay, so Declarant. Tom Anderson became the Declarant in 2017. This is somewhat of an infomercial for him, but at the same time, it's true. He's made some sizable investments here, not the least of which is the growth. He's done a lot of that. The community club participated in that too, but he's been very much involved in that. Okay, what the real large and short part of this is what the amendments are doing is giving him, Tom Anderson, the declarant, the same rights that we have as sewer to directly bill property owners when he puts in the infrastructure. Now, let me go through why that's important, and you'll get some of the history here. I better do this. People will yell at me. Okay. So this is a map of Fairfield Glade, all of Fairfield Glade. What we're talking about mainly is about from this area south. It does not include the stables, okay? The board has not decided what to do with the stables. So there's none of this is being affected by the stables or the stable decision. Now, this area down here, and before we get to this area, I'm going to talk about what Tom does today. That big white area up there, that's basically where Maple Ridge, Chestnut Ridge, and the other land that the declarant owns is placed. What the declarant does now, and listen very carefully here, he goes up to the land that he wants to develop. He puts in the infrastructure. After he puts in the infrastructure, he parcels out all of the land into lots. And when he gets done with plotting the lots, he puts the cost of that infrastructure into the lot that people buy. That's very different than down here. Because what happened is these lots are all sold. So they're not land anymore, they are lots. And I'll go through who owns those. What's happened, because the lots are sold, there's no place to put the cost of the infrastructure. Because it wasn't developed, it was sold. So now what the problem is, and the issue is that Tom has no mechanism, or for that matter, any declarant would have no mechanism. If he went in and built roads, there's no way for him to bill anybody for the use of for the cost of those roads. And quite honestly, if we have any nature or any desire to develop any of this land, you've got to have roads, you've got to have water, and you've got to have sewer, okay? So that's why we're talking about this today. Now, you'll see the hodgepodge here, and you see all these different colors. There's 4 groups that own land, I should say lots, in this area. And I'll get to the private ones at the last. But the largest group that owns lots is Fairfield Glade Community Club, us. And we own about 1,775 of the lots down in this area. Now, those generate not one nickel of revenue for us. Absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, all of us get the opportunity to pay taxes on those lots that we own. So it's a drain on us. It's not a help. The second group that owns it is Wyndham, and Wyndham owns about 1,295 of lots in this area. Wyndham pays assessments to us. So they pay almost to the tune of almost $800,000 in assessments in a year, on the lots that they own here. The third group is the county. And the county owns about 883 lots in this area. And again, they generate no revenue for us. We don't, the county obviously doesn't pay taxes on the land they own, but we as Cumberland County residents, we get the opportunity of not seeing any benefit from those taxes because they're not paid. So it affects the way that we live as a member of the county. The fourth group are the private owners, and there's about 4,000 of those. So they bought this land, you can probably guess, probably the 70s, 80s, that time frame, promised that they were going to get development down here, and never got it. So not a lot of them are happy campers. As a matter of fact, you would probably take a look at this map probably in, let's just say, 1985 or so. It was probably pretty much all white because all of the private owners owned it. Over time, people didn't pay their assessments. They wanted out, and what's very typical for us is the parents bought this land maybe in the 80s, early 90s even. They passed away, and the kids get a surprise. You own land in Tennessee. And they have no desire to move here. They have no desire to build here. So what they do, and we allow them to do it because of financial hardship reasons and because we want to control those lots, is we get them back. Okay? That's how we get lots here. The second group, the way Wyndham got them is they at one point were the declarant. Most of the lots you see here that they have, they didn't go out and buy. They were leftovers after they got out of being the declarant. The third group, the county, the way they get the lots is really through people not paying their taxes. And this is another reason why we're concerned about this, because once the county gets a lot, it's very difficult to get a clear deed on it. Okay? By state regulation, it takes years for you to get a clear deed, because what the state has put in is law that basically says, gee, this lot is not paid taxes on, and let's say I was a son of somebody who had it, I can come back within a 6-year period, really actually 10, then I can come back and take that lot, and if somebody like Glenn built a house on that, I get the house with it. So it's a very difficult thing to do, and we're trying to work and try to get some of that at least moved up. We're not going to eliminate that, but at some point, it's probably the most onerous law I've seen, even when I was in banking. We never saw lots having to be tied up that long. So that's why this is important. Now, when you come up here and you look at this map, you'll see like little white areas where there's roads. So what the declarant did do at that time is he sold the lots. He did get them plotted. That's why there you see little squares as opposed to just white land, okay? And he did go to the county and say, this is where we'd like to put the roads. And the county said, okay. But so all the easements, all that plotting is already done, but he never built them. So that's what this is about in terms of the lots and how we got them and kind of where we're going with them. That is a typical road. Matter of fact, that would be considered a good road down that area because it's got at least some gravel on it. I have, and people that have served on the lot committee, I know when I've been out there, you can get a physical address for each one of these little white squares or colored squares. And it'll say like 123 Main Street. You'll go down there to try to take a look at that lot, and you may be standing in the middle of a forest. You may be on one of these kind of roads. You may be nothing but grass. But when you drive with your GPS, because the address has been registered, you will see it stop, and all of a sudden you're looking around and saying, what's this? So that's the situation that we have down here. The Community Club Board of Directors is unanimously in favor of this. There's not one of us that really support this. But we know if we don't get the support on this amendment, that basically this area is likely never to get developed. Altogether, if you just heard my numbers, that's about 8,000 lots. Now, that doesn't mean all 8,000 are buildable lots, okay? So let's be clear. There's probably 2,000, maybe even more than that, that we'll never be able to build on because, as you know, by driving through our nice community, we have hills, we got slopes, we got drop-offs, we got all of that. And that's going to be found down here too. So keep that in mind. And the reason why this is coming up now is before the declarant got bankrupt, and he had developed all of this area right in here. And when I say developed, I mean everything from sewer to water to roads and all of that. That was all in there. Over the last 50 years, this is now getting to the point where it's pretty well built out. We need more land if we're going to have to grow. Now there's still A lots and B lots and that type of thing there for some development, but that's going to, over time, it's going to dry up. It's going to be done. So this is really opening up this area really for development. Okay. This is a high threshold, and this is the reason why we're trying to get all the information out we can. And the most important thing here is it takes 3/4 of the voting property owners, okay, that actually vote in the election or in the vote, make a vote to pass this amendment. It's not 1/50% or anything like that. It's 3/4 of the property owners that make a vote on this amendment. So that's a pretty high threshold. It means that if we don't educate people, then we really run the risk of really not getting the vote that we want or need. Now, the other thing I would tell you, I'm getting into some of the confusing questions that we've had. If you live right now with a house, with a sewer, with a water, okay, this does not apply to you, okay? You've already paid your infrastructure costs. And this came up as questions also, and I'm kind of trying to get some of the questions in here so I anticipate where some of you might go. People say, well, gee, why don't we just take that and, develop that land, let the community club pay for the roads? And that seems fair. Well, fair is each one of you people that's sitting in here that is living in a home here in Fairfield Glade, you have already paid for the infrastructure for your home. And it came in when you when you bought the house. It came into if you built the house, when you built the house, that cost was embedded in there. These people have had none of that, okay? And again, if this would have been a perfect world, the developer would have gotten in here and developed all this, built the roads, got the sewer, got the water in, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. But that didn't happen, okay? So some of the benefits, I'll go through this pretty quickly. Probably the biggest thing, generate revenue. And we know, and Scott, I know, knows probably this in spades because of his work on the strategic planning committee, but we all know that this community, the assets we have are built for 4,500 people or 4,500 residents, and we're still living it with 10,000. So it's a little wonder when people talk about not having card areas. It's a little wonder when people say, I can't get a meeting room. It's a little wonder when they say, well, gee, you know, it's getting so crowded on the golf courses, I can't get, you know, I can't even get on sometimes. Or even, especially in racket sports now, and particularly pickleball, because the even growth projections there has been much higher than even the other amenities. So there's real repercussions to us for not having this kind of thing done. Now, what I'd also tell you is that in this board, and the last boards have really taken this on, is the philosophy before probably, I would say probably around 2015, 14, something like that, was we build an asset, we run it till it can't run anymore, and then, oh, by the way, we'll now build a new one. That's probably the most expensive way to continue to maintain your assets. The poster child for that is what happened over at Druid Hills Clubhouse. That building was only about 53 years old. Life expectancy on a building like that should be somewhere between 75 and 100. But when we got in and saw what was happening there, and we did the first independent engineering study to see if we could renovate it, we had leaky roofs, we had water in the walls, we had mold, we had trusses that were not to code. It was a whole series of things. And it didn't take a mental giant to figure out pretty quickly renovation was not in the cards. But it's a shame because if that building had been maintained this way it should have been, we should have been able to make some renovations and we wouldn't be talking about a $16 or $17 million expenditure here. But that's what was happening. The boards recently have said we're not going to let that happen anymore. That's why we took the reserve study, and now that's in there, and the whole purpose of the reserve study is to lay out a life expectancy for an asset and figure out what you got to do to maintain it to keep that asset to its full life expectancy. And that's what that's for. So that has been a problem here for quite a while, and we're living with some of that. But now we're going to have to do, and I'd be a big proponent of this, and Scott alluded to it too, and actually said it in the strategic plan. One of the first things we'll need to do, especially if this amendment passes, and we hope it does, is do a land use study. Because all of a sudden you're not talking about, oh, we're just doing some development here. Well, we're going to have a need for additional assets that are going to take care of the population here, not the least of which would be what are we going to do about more emergency vehicle or more emergency services? What are we going to do about fire? What are we going to do about food and beverage? What are we going to do about other amenities that we might want to bring in? Where are those going to go? So all of this needs to really force us to do a whole plan of not just this area, but the whole campus at Fairfield Lake. So it really does help us with our long-term planning. It's a 10-year, we have a 10-year capital plan, but this was not contemplated when we did that plan. This is a big deal. It's going to affect our plan. So if we don't have additional revenue, we're going to be looking at living pretty much with what we got. Now, we'll improve it, we'll have to build new, and we'll have to do some of that, but you're not going to see a whole big infusion of a lot of new buildings and a lot of new other things, because the other thing that happens with the philosophy we had, and I'll give you the cliff notes on this, is that by and large, the people who lived here were the people who paid for the new amenities. So when we did the Racket Center a couple of years ago, the people that lived here were the ones that had to pay for that. And we thought that that was a little unfair. That's why you heard about the amenity reserve fee going in, because that's the buy-in for somebody who maybe came the week later and said, gee, I get all these amenities and I get them really basically for free. I didn't have to lay out the capital. And that's not right, okay? So one of the big things we're doing with this as well is when we take a look at the infusion of capital and things so that we can actually do some building and do some modernization and grow the campus the way it should, this is going to jumpstart a lot of that. And that's not in the capital plan right now, because the capital plan basically, yeah, there's some things that we're doing like the new pickleball courts and that type of thing. But there's going to come a point where the community is going to be constrained by the amount of capital dollars they have. And for those of you that don't realize it, you should, that when we charge you an assessment, for every dollar of assessment we charge you, we only get 25% of that, a quarter, if you will, that can go into capital projects. That's in our CNRs. The board and the community is limited to a cap of 25% for any kind of capital that we get through assessments. Okay? And this is getting at that point. This should allow us to get a lot more infrastructure improvements in than what we have. Certainly this area down here, there's nothing. There's nothing. I shouldn't say that. More over in here. We've obviously got a golf course, but we have a number of nice lots on there that we can't get infrastructure to, so we don't get anything for those. And it really should increase property values. It certainly will do it for this group, okay? That because they got nothing and now they're going to have something, there's going to be a value on it once the infrastructure gets in. Now, when we talk about the Declarant, Tom wears actually two hats. One of the hats is the Declarant. That's the developer. His role is spelled out in the CNRs, and his role when he's wearing that hat is getting this developed. He also is the owner of Fairfield Glade Homes, so he's a builder too. And if there's been one time I've probably asked this question 100 times, well, does this mean that Fairfield Glade Homes is going to build out all these lots? The answer is a real quick no, and Tom has publicly said it's no. He stood in front of 4 of these question and answer sessions and said the answer is no. There's no way he could do that. Right now in Fairfield Glade, most years we build between 100 and 125 new homes. He represents 30 to 40 of those every year. You're not going to get all of this developed by one builder. Now, that means that other builders, and I've heard this question, well, gee, that doesn't seem fair to the other builders. What's going to happen is Tom has agreements with Wyndham, us, and the county through us to buy lots, okay? Those are all agreed to. But there's still 4,000 people there, or individual property owners, all these wide areas, by and large, that some of them are going to say, yeah, I want to build. Some of them are going to say, I don't want to build. Some of them will say, get me out of this. And so builders will have other opportunities. They're not going to have to buy all of their lots from Tom. They can go down and negotiate with anybody who owns property and try to buy that lot for whatever they can get for it, okay? And with new builders, probably there will be additional kinds of homes that we don't anticipate. Now, one question that typically comes up is says, well, gee, are you going to build condos down there, apartment complexes? The answer is absolutely not. Because, see all these little individual rectangles? If you were going to put a condominium down there, for instance, you would have to have 50, 60, maybe 100 of those people all agree that they're going to sell it to the same person at the same time. That ain't going to happen. Plus, we would have to go through rezoning with the county to even have that as a multifamily dwelling as opposed to just a single family dwelling. So under any condition that you look at with the reality tempered in, you're talking about single family homes. Now, there can be different styles of those, and that's going to happen, but they're all going to be single family. And really it does for the people that have held on to these lots for God knows how many years. It makes good on the promise that they were sold the lot with a long time ago that said, you're going to get development down here. And it allowed us to really plan and thoughtfully plan how growth's going to happen. Now, another thing, a question that usually comes up, well, what's going to be the rate of growth? Well, let's just be honest here, okay? I don't see any board today or in the future that's going to say, let's bring Pulte in there and build 400 homes a year. Because they have the capacity to do that. They really want to come in and do that. That's not what we're looking for. So this area here to develop, and it's still got lots to develop on, has taken over 50 years to get where it is today. You're probably looking at least that for this, okay? It's not going to happen overnight, and we recognize that. So it's going to be thoughtful and planned growth. And what the reason why we want that is we don't want somebody come in and say, well, I'm going to put in roads and I'm going to put in infrastructure and all that down here. And so sewers run and everything like that. And then somebody else comes over here, and then somebody comes over here. That's not what we're looking at in terms of thoughtful growth. It'll be phased where really the community and the declarant, the water, the sewer, the electric, all of those areas, all the major utilities, all the real infrastructure you really need are going to work together and have to work together in order for this to be phased. So once it starts, it'll probably just kind of grow in a sequential or logical way. So that's what that's about. Voting starts May 27th, and it goes till June 21st. And we're having the same company that handles our board elections to handle these elections because they got all of our data. They can test all the emails and that type of thing. For everybody who has an email, that vote will be electronic. For those people that don't have emails, snail mail is what we'll do because that's the only way we can get to them. But we have a mandate that we have to send out to all property owners a ballot on this. And I think for the last board election, we sent out 12,000 of those ballots. It'll change a little bit because we do sell lots and it's different than it was last year. So it'll grow a little bit, but we'll be in that neighborhood, somewhere around there. Okay, with that, do you have any questions? I'm going to let you just hand this around.
All right, I can do that. And thanks again for presenting this and the opportunity for asking questions. So in this agreement, first of all, once you make this change to the amendment, you and I have talked about it, but just for the group, it's permanent, correct? In other words, it's in place unless we vote it to change it again.
Yes.
Okay. So how does this work with Tom as the declarant? If he should all of a sudden have an epiphany and say, hey, I can make a lot of money if I sell my declarant rights to somebody else, they already got the amendment, so the declarant gets to do all this stuff. And let's say I just divide this into quarters and I sell it to 4 people. So we got 4 declarants, his rights, and I don't know legally. And all of a sudden, all our planning and everything goes out the window. You see where I'm going?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but remember, we as a community club have rights. We can say we're not going to put sewer in. Okay? That'd be a big deal for somebody coming in and develop.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, there have been times when Tom, with his declarant rights, has said, I'm not going to put a road in, and you can't do it either.
Okay.
And that tells builders, well, if I have a house out there and I can't get sewer or a road to it, I'm not going to build it. So there are some natural things. Also, one of the things that, again, you wouldn't realize unless you're really into the governance of this stuff, is that there are what I call, okay, thank you, Jason. There are what I call implementing policies. So like, for instance, with sewer, The overall policy, section 2, in what you have in your hand, you got 1 and 3, is written almost identically to what's in 1 and 3, with the exception of those yellow highlights, which are the ones we're putting in. But the implementing policies are the things that tell you what things are going to cost, how it's going to be done. The board of directors of Fairfield Glade controls the vote on those policies. So if something came in that was just absolutely wacky, I would expect the board to say, we're not going to approve that. Try again. Okay?
And that works well, but based on the history lesson when I attended the meeting, which was great, but it started these questions in my mind, because one of the issues on the original declarant that happened is he went belly up. And the bankruptcy judge really threw in made a lot of changes to that agreement. So by changing the bylaws, and something happens at the time and he goes belly up, and a bankruptcy judge comes into play, we're like opening the door.
Not really.
Okay.
Because one of the things that bankruptcy came out of is the formation of the community club. We now have CNRs. We now have bylaws. We have an organization that's there that was created through that bankruptcy. The other thing is, and this is a little bit of the history lesson that Tom's talking about, when the person did this originally, this was for a master's thesis, and then he actually acted on it. He was going to put in these communities all the way from North Carolina through here, Arkansas, all the way out to Colorado. And he did that. He extended himself, and those of you that were around in the mid-'80s, I was actually working for a savings and loan at the time. I got brought in to help turn it around. But the fact is, the savings and loan industry just collapsed because they had all these loans out with no collateral or no physical assets that really could be turned into cash. So this guy, he was forced to go belly up because he couldn't retire his debt. That's not the same situation we're in here today. You know, certainly even the financial organizations are not going to let you get too far out in front of yourself. And Tom, I know him to be a very careful developer. He's not going to go in and start putting in roads all over the place like this guy did without knowing that, okay, I'm going to stop right here, get this area developed, and now we're going to move on to the next phase. So there's a lot more breaks in here now than there used to be. Yeah.
I'm looking at Jason's report on the lot ownership breakdown.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for that, Jason. There are 1,557 revoked lots,
Yep.
and we have a lien filed on 1,706 lots. So what efforts being made, because we can't get title to these lots, and is the community club going to try to contact all these people? Is Anderson going to try to contact these people? Because that could be a real problem of how things get
We haven't
developed
done it
here.
so much on C lots, but on other lots, we'll eventually foreclose on them. Now they go up for auction, and we oftentimes will go in and buy them. So that's, we haven't had, nor have we had really the appetite to do it for the C lots because it costs more to go into the foreclosure business on a C lot than what it's worth. However, that dynamic is likely to change if you have a large area you're trying to develop. So I would expect that we would probably get more active. I know Tom would absolutely get more active because the reason why he can't do really much in terms of liens or foreclosures is because he doesn't have anybody to bill. So he can't say, I provided that service to Greg Jones. I never got a bill from him. So he can't go back on somebody like you typically would, like we can, and say, oh yeah, we ran sewer here in front of you. Oh yeah, we have assessments that you owe us. And yes, if you don't pay them, You're going to also get fined, and we'll eventually put a lien on you. And if that doesn't get your attention, eventually we'll foreclose on you.
My question is more along the line, is Tom Anderson going to contact these lot owners that are revoked or have a lien and say, I want to buy your property. Let's negotiate a
Well,
price.
he very well could do that. And we had actually other builders that have done that. So a builder can go negotiate, and oftentimes, matter of fact, there was one that happened a couple months ago where the actual builder said, I'll get all the assessments, I'll get all the fees, I'll get everything up to date, but I want that lot.
I guess the rest of the question, though, is, are we working with Tom? Because we have some authority that they haven't paid us. Tom wants to buy that property. He could offer him something. So are we working together so that
Well,
we
I
can
think
clear up title, get title, and
Let me be clear about that.
and get more
We will work with
communication?
anyone who wants to buy a lot. That could be Tom, that could be another builder, that could be you, whoever. We want to get out of the real estate business because that's not our business. We want to get every one of the lots that we possibly can to get generating dues at an A level. We get dues right now from private owners, but we get it at a C level, which is, what's the C level now? About $46, $47, I think. Something like that. But what? Not enough. Not enough. And we don't collect anything on sewer for that. So that's all they're paying because there's no sewer there. And if you don't have sewer, we don't charge you for it. Right. So the fact of the matter is that there's a whole lot of people that we can work with on that. You've got the sheet right there. What is it? The C lot.
C lots are 6885.
Okay.
Oh, that's B, sorry.
Yeah.
5265.
Yeah, I thought it was close.
5265.
Okay, 5255. So that's what we get on those people that are paying us. But what's going to happen over time, this took 50 years to get all these different colors in there. You pass forward another 50 years and guess what? Those people are going to stop paying dues because they're going to give it back to us, they're going to sell it to somebody, or they're going to go belly up and give it to the county, and we won't collect a nickel on those. So it's in our best interest to work with anybody who wants to buy a lot.
With the large number of lots, though, it seems like we're not putting in enough effort. And maybe Tom isn't either. I mean, 1,700 out of 18,000, I mean, that's a pretty good.
The truth of the matter is, Nico, is
We need a better
down
negotiator.
here, a number of these lots are sold as what are called membership lots. And people buy them with the hope that they never have to build on them or anybody develops them. Because they just buy them so they can come in and use our amenities at a member fee as opposed to having to come here and pay as a guest. So I know of lots all over this place that have sold for $100, $200, $300. And the whole reason why they do it is they just want the membership rights. As a matter of fact, when I first got on the board, there was a person that actually, the lot owner paid them $10 to take the lot. So that tells you what they had the value on. And right now, these have almost no value because there's no plan to develop them. There's nobody that's going to want them unless you're just wanting to own land for some reason. So yeah, we work with everybody that wants to buy a lot. Okay? Yeah.
Just one last thing for me. Who's all eligible to vote on this amendment?
Anyone who owns property.
Okay, who are they? All those groups you said, Wyndham and?
Pardon me? In good standing. That's right, Ted. I'm glad you said that. So, like I said, last year when we did the board election, that's the most recent one that we've had, there were about 12,200, I think was the number, of ballots that were sent out. It'll be something similar to that this time. We do have people that go in and out of good standing, and if you're not in good standing, that means you're paid up with your dues. And that
What's
type
the
of
breakdown? Like Wyndham has so many?
Well, I gave you pretty
Anderson-
close to the breakdowns. These are general ones.
Okay.
We have about 1,775 lots. Wyndham has about 1,295. Private people own about 4,000. And the county, which cannot vote, and we do not vote our lots, okay, because we don't pay dues on them. or
Well, thank you for that, but I appreciate it for all your time.
Yep.
Okay?
You're right.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Where the Wyndham properties are, that they are giving back to the association.
They're all over the place. They're sprinkled all over.
So sprinkled, the question.
Oh,
was
you're
where-
talking about the common areas.
Yeah,
Oh, this map doesn't show it. We got about 210 parcels of.
the question
of,
was,
common-
what lots does Wyndham have that are
No,
giving
no,
back
those
to
are
the
not lots.
association? Oh,
That's common area.
common area, okay.
Okay, so those are patches of ground, if you will.
So it's not like that big pink area down on the bottom or something like that?
It may or may not be. One of the things,
Okay.
Ted, that we're trying to do is we just got all of this in the last couple of months. So one of the things we have to do is walk down all those common areas and find out where they are. 4 of them we did not take. And that's because some of them used to be used for builders when they would get old water tanks and things like that, we'd fill them in, and we told them we don't want those until they're cleaned up,
Okay,
okay?
Very
But
good.
they're all over the place, okay?
thank you.
Anything else?
Hopper used to have a dumping ground.
That's one of them.
By.
That's one of them. That's one of them.
Okay.
As one resident told me, or one member told me, they were seeing water tanks come up from the ground.
So
Not a good look.
all the lots have been transferred. Has the title also been transferred?
Yes, common ground. They're not lots. Common ground.
There's a common lot by me that still is in Wyndham's name.
It's not a lot. It's common ground. And in the CNRs, you'll find out that there's 3 types of common ground. And I won't go all into that in here, but common ground, and actually, we've gotten a bargain. People say, well, why in the world are we taking those lots? You know, we were supposed to take those lots in 1997. That's written in the CNRs. And it's written in the CNRs that we cannot refuse them when they give them to us. So we had to take them on. Wyndham had been paying taxes on them for like 28, 29 years. The good news is, since they're common ground, the taxes are pretty low. But the fact is, we got those transferred in, and to be honest with you, Nico, we got to walk them down and see what we have. Because we don't even know what we could maybe even use some of that for. But we know the 4 that have been used like Hopper did for dumping and that type of thing, we're not taking those back till they're cleaned up.
Okay.
Okay? Well, thank all of you. I really appreciate you hanging in here with us for 3 presentations, and really appreciate you staying. So thanks a lot.
Going to take this home?